In the fall of 2010, the city of Moncton embarked on a journey trying to imagine its community 10, 20, even 50 years from now. With the support of City Council, the Greater Moncton District Planning Commission, municipal staff, and an enthusiastic citizens committee, an extensive public consultation process began. What legacy do the Monctonians of today want to leave to the Monctonians of future generations? Throughout January and February 2011, residents, business owners, and representatives from various community groups shared their feedback by attending open house sessions, sending emails, and participating in the culminating event, the Visioning Symposium. What will your Moncton look like?
Strong focus on downtown. Moncton will be a city with a vibrant downtown where citizens can live, work, shop, study, and play. And here a real important piece, 24/7, so round the clock and during all seasons. Waterfront being a big part of that as a vision and as a priority.
And we want to see it as a vibrant and growing downtown. And we felt that this was the core to everything, is to have that downtown that's going to attract the people. Development of the waterfront is another exciting thing, and see the bicycles and the people just using it extensively and interacting, and they have their pets and whatever. It's all down there and it's beautiful, so we could do that.
Catering to all different age groups and nationalities. And I would like to probably end up in the downtown core of Moncton.
We said Moncton will be a city with a vibrant downtown where citizens can live, work, and play. And in part what we're talking about is the downtown residential neighborhood. We've seen that suffering, and the French schools, there are none in downtown Moncton. We're looking at closing Moncton High and moving it somewhere else, and there was a risk to Edith Cavell. And so what sort of downtown residential neighborhood do you have if you lose that?
And I would be extremely surprised if PlanMoncton at the end of the day doesn't have this idea as one of the key prominent ideas in the plan. Because this is something that, in my mind, gained an incredible momentum in the last couple of days, and will certainly be something that every decision making that happens into the future will be reminded of this and what happened in these 3 days. In a similar kind of a fashion, identify areas of the city. Urban villages, I think, was the language that was very strongly being used across the board, that are appropriate for mixed use and higher density. And this is, again, is about being strategic. Is about saying, we're not going to change an entire neighborhood, but we might spend some time thinking about the center of the neighborhood. We might spend some time getting the mix right of some of the retail, some of the civic institutions, some of the public spaces that give that neighborhood a heart, and that give that neighborhood and the people in that neighborhood an ability to walk there and kind of complete that space.
An urban lifestyle in our downtown, a full and complete lifestyle where you have your cafe, you have your bakery, you have your shops, you have your storefronts, services, you're plugged into Main Street, you're along the river, you're plugged into the river.
More young people downtown, like having more education facilities downtown, or maybe less parking spaces that are wide and maybe built up instead of sideways.
Living on the second and third floor, and that's the type of urban village concept that I think people are telling us they'd like to see in our downtowns.
So it's about identifying strategically parts of the city where some of this growth can be oriented and create it in a way that it creates these nodes, these urban villages, these centers that people can really gravitate to and will increasingly form part of a sense of place and a sense of identity. Pedestrians are an indicator species. I can tell you very quickly the success of an environment just by doing pedestrian counts. So those are very successful environments, right? Those are environments where there's a certain vibrancy, where you can imagine yourself engaging in life in an active kind of a way, right? You're moving around, people are moving around with you, you're talking to people, that's the kind of environment. So think about the spotted owl for the forest being an indicator species. Pedestrians are exactly the same thing for cities.
To have convenient alternatives to taking your car. We'd like to see elimination of the car in the downtown area. The connection of all the pathways from the different areas, be it Riverview, Dieppe, so that people can cycle or walk or whatever to get into the downtown area as opposed to taking your vehicles.
Part of that included maybe blocking Main Street off part-time. And what we looked at was not blocking it off completely, but having bollards that you would walk the street off at certain times of the year or certain times of the day, but opening it up at other times of the day when it makes sense to have cars going through there.
When we create an identity and a vision based on environments that strive for cars, what ends up happening is we have car-oriented cities, greater distances between things, we have greater amount of infrastructure, we end up with more cars. If we have, in a different paradigm, cities that are built around pedestrians being the indicator species, we end up having pedestrian-oriented streets, pedestrian-oriented buildings, pedestrian-oriented cities, shorter distances, less infrastructure, and more people. There is really a paradigm that we set ourselves up for, and there's a circle in terms of the decisions that we start to make. Moncton will celebrate the breadth and diversity of our cultural heritage. In addition to the natural heritage, we have this amazing cultural heritage that we can build upon and leverage into the future. And in order to create a true sense of place, certainly the downtown is a big part of that, and about the public spaces and the streetscapes. And some of the discussions I thought were really interesting because much of it, yes, is anchored in a known cultural heritage, but the diversity that is entering Moncton in current days, and certainly in the last 5 years, and presumably in the next 5 years, is only expanding and increasing our collective cultural heritage and all the things that we are all about.
My vision for Moncton is to add more agriculture and culture in the downtown Moncton area, adding artwork to some of the empty cement areas in our downtown regions, bringing to life some of the non-developed areas or areas that have been closed down for quite some time.
Bringing universities' presence and academic presence into the downtown, the events, the cultural events, the art, a lot of these things really kind of seem to be for people a trigger of much greater things.
That it would treat the individual as an integral person. The facilities and accessibility to facilities for education for the mind, exercise for the body, and most important of all, spaces where spirituality can be engendered and facilitated.
And this is kind of one of the things that in my mind rises the strategic level of some of the big moves, is those big moves that can actually become a trigger and a catalyst for much, much more things to happen. fostering bold leadership, being innovative and trend-setting, and willing to try new things and take risks. It's really about challenging ourselves. It's not only about challenging council, it's about challenging everybody in Moncton, about showing leadership and making sure that Moncton itself continues, because it has done in the past, to show leadership around how do we develop as a city, how do we grow as a society, how do we grow and evolve as a group of people who are making plans and doing these things.
We're looking at the city in the future. So in the future, the city is grappled with these 5 bold moves, and the first one that they grappled with is coming up with a strategy for structured and organized parking. So now the city has much more land downtown for development purposes, and that brings us to the next phase, which was the ability to bring educational institutions of higher learning in our downtown setting. The third issue was this beautification thing. Number 4, what we did is we closed Main Street to through traffic, okay? And then we instituted the e-trolley. Finally, the last big move was naturally the civic heart of our downtown. So basically, it's City Hall, it's the library, it comes down the courts on the side, it's Central Park, and it's all that land in between, and it was turning that into a north-south pedestrian mall that essentially gathered together all of our major civic functions.
Zoning laws that we have, to review them and enforce them, and be wise in zoning, where and what. What do we establish where, and stick to that, not allowing it to be wavered because of different opinions and so on.
And I heard a lot about Moncton will foster bold leadership, be innovative and trend-setting, and be willing to try new things and take risks. And that this will actually extend to the regional neighbors, the other municipalities and the province, and kind of this has to happen in a broader conversation.
Monctonians' entrepreneurial spirit and can-do attitude have been essential to its recent successes and achievements. Riding high in times of global economic turmoil, the city as a whole is now faced with a great opportunity in terms of positioning itself as the place to live, work, and play in New Brunswick, Atlantic Canada, and beyond.
We have to be thinking about how do we want to grow? Where do we want the city to be in 5 and 10 and 20 years in the future?
Today we're living in the city that those who came before us imagined and built. Future generations will be living in the city that we imagine and start building today.
And we'll be continuing to work with the community to see that this comes to fruition and we build a fantastic Moncton for the future that you will all want to live and work, attract your relatives, bring your children back home so that they'll stay here and we'll continue to grow this community.
The many facets of PlanMoncton, coupled with the will and determination of residents and leaders, will oversee the development of the next great Canadian city.